Oz, what is up, sir?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What is up?
Doing good,
Yeah,
man.
very
Doing
good.
good. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I've had some time off for Christmas and for the holidays, so just been chilling, just been catching up on some emails and just generally living not a studio life for a couple of weeks, which has been great.
Yeah. Well, look,
Must
I
be
want to
nice.
thank both you and Matt for staying up this late to be on the show tonight, because people don't realize y'all are behind us or ahead of
Yeah,
us, or how you want to look at it. So it's late for you guys right now, right?
that's
Yeah,
it.
it's
I mean,
1:45 in the morning.
yeah, that's it.
Oh, oh man, that really.
Luckily, yeah, I mean, luckily the music and studio life kind of helps make you nocturnal, I guess. So it's not too bad, not too
Right.
bad. It's
Yeah.
great to be here and have a chance to chat to you guys anyway. So it's more than happy to stay up for this.
Well, good. Well, good. We appreciate the love, man. Matt, we was chatting earlier. I want you to take the lead on this. Let's start with when were we talking about that, where we said to get Oz on the show? Was it after one of the streams when we were talking and you mentioned that?
It was when I was dropping tracks into the services chat, and I was like, "Oh, this is another one of Oz's bangers," and you
Right.
literally went, "Get him on the show." So I dropped him a message, and here we are.
All right. Well, killer. Yeah, I'm glad that worked out for us. So Oz, how'd you get your start, man? Recording bands.
So yeah, it's a long road, but I kind of always, I played music and played instruments from a really young age, and always had a kind of fascination with technology and how things worked. And I think the two just always kind of were trying to find ways of kind of putting those two things together. And when I was like in my early teens, I decided that the best way to do that would be to like make guitars. So I made an electric guitar and it sucked. Uh, so I realized that maybe that's not for me. But while I was doing that, I don't know if you guys have a similar thing out in the States, but we have a thing here called work experience that you do at school when you're about 15, that you have like a week or 2 weeks where they take you into like an industry that you might have an interest in. And, you get to kind of be a kind of help out a little bit or do that kind of thing. And the place where I went had like a guitar workshop kind of repair center. So that's kind of why I went there, thinking that I was going to be good at making guitars, which I definitely wasn't. Um, but they had a recording studio there, and it was one of those weird, lightning bolt moments of taking in the engineers' cups of tea as a 15-year-old and watching like actual sessions happening. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And I've just essentially been completely focused since that age of and that's all I've done and all I've cared about really. And, that's been my primary focus since the age of 15. So from there, it kind of, snowballed from there. And I started working in that studio more, worked there full time for a while, and then kind of realized that I kind of wanted to do my own thing and focus on, the music I loved a little bit more. So then went the route that I think everyone else does now, which is kind of setting up a small home studio, bribing my parents to let me use their garage when I was, late teens, and built a little studio there. And that's kind of how it all kicked off, really.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What I'm not sure the time frame here, but when you were apprenticing more or less at the other studio, did you get to watch technology kind of change there, where it got more compact, more accessible, and people like you're saying, like yourself, have the ability to do exactly what you're doing, whereas I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 20-ish, that wouldn't have really been a possibility to the degree that you're doing it now.
No, that's right. I mean, and that is basically the time frame it was in. So that was, yeah, when was that? Yeah, it was about just over 20. Yeah. So I did my work experience when I was 15. That's like 22 years ago. So I started doing it full time when I was maybe 18, 19. So that's like 19 years. So I've really had a career in this as the technology has been evolving. So the first studio I worked in was digital tape. So it was still tape, but it was digital, but it was all analog. There was no computer in the studio. It was all hands-on, outboard gear and analog mixing desk and channels. We used to, we used to smoke cigarettes and stuff in there, and so all the channels would stop working, and tea would get spilt on it and stuff. So it was pretty, old school rock and roll kind of place. And yeah, it's been mad. I mean, I think the last probably the last 5 or 10 years, I've seen the most change in terms of the output that people are doing from home now. And like, you know, I get sent demos. It's quite common that I'll get sent demos from bands now, and they're like, yeah, these are the songs we're doing. I'm like, damn, that sounds like a finished production. You know, like, what am I going to do? But I mean, I always try and find a way of shoehorning in my little ideas and trying to elevate those. But, you know, people are doing great stuff now just from their laptops in their bedrooms, which just wasn't possible, you know?
Well, you know, like, it seems like in bands there's, okay, like pretty much you got a drummer, bass player, guitar, and vocalist, I would say would be the norm. And then obviously there's other instruments that some bands do, but nowadays it's like one of those guys also has to be the producer. You know what I mean? It's like, that's like a thing now. It's like, which one of you guys are the producer? And it's like, oh, it's me. I do all that, you know? And you're right. Some of the things that they put out as demos, it's like, damn. I mean, yeah, it's not completely finished, but damn, it's close, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's also like finding, I think, the role that I play now is also like figuring out actually what is needed. You know, sometimes it's just like, look, let's just recapture this, you know, tidy up a few loose ends, mix it and call it done. And then other times, you know, I'm kind of taking things apart and being like, look, this is really cool what you're doing, but I think there's some things that we could really improve on, and let's rethink about the drums. Because, you know, again, a lot of the times that, like you were saying, that, you know, there's usually a member that kind of like takes the role of producer or lead writer. I've found that's more often than not the guitarist who will then program the drums, for say. And then when a real drummer comes to play it, there might be issues or problems. So then it's kind of my job to kind of figure out what's possible there versus what they've written, and how we're going to join those two things up in the real world, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. And having an outside
100%. I was going to bring me on to my next point with Oz. It's, you know, he's saying he gets these demos that are, you know, almost finished. Like, do you get ones that are just terrible?
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people out there, like, because I always say, like, put the money into your production, because it will make the difference of radio picking you up or not.
100%,
doing what I do for the station, which is the new ads and, you know, all the submissions of emails and stuff like that, and the amount of stuff that I just listen to, and I'm just like, their production needs sorting out.
Yeah,
you know,
well, it's, I think
in your production
100%. And I think it's in a weird way, I actually prefer it when bands don't have a really slick demo, because that way they've got the core of the song there, so they know what they're playing, they know the parts, they know the type, you know, the structure of the song, the basics, but they're not kind of invested into how, in the producer's world, we call it demo-itis, when people do a demo and then they spend 6 months tweaking and being, you know, fanatical about it, and then bring it to me, and I'm like, I'm going to do something completely different, you know. And people can sometimes be so attached to what they've spent kind of their passion tweaking that it, you know, you have to have some conversations. So sometimes actually a really rough live recording, you know, in a practice room is like a better for me, because it means that I've got more free reign to actually go, cool, we could try this, we could do this, you know, and people, it's like a whole new thing rather than almost producing it twice.
Yeah.
Right.
For all you youngsters out there, if you own an iPhone or a smartphone really of any kind, but I've always noticed that the iPhone's microphone on it is something special. Sit that thing in the corner of the room while you're practicing, while you're writing, or you know, with the full band, and just hit record. And if your songs are tight enough, I mean, that is way good enough for a demo, right?
Yeah,
like you said,
100%.
That's 100% enough what you need for a demo.
That's it. And I think what's you know, again, it's like, you know, there's always you know, I try and never be too fixed on any particular thing, but like personally, I think as someone that always, like, you know, has come up with, you know, rock or heavy music being predominantly about a live thing, real performances. I think sometimes recently younger bands maybe focus so much on programming the drums, you know, making everything perfect, and then when it comes, you know, they come to me, I'm like, well, you're going to have to play it to some degree. You know, I'm not going to sit here and just make it all. You know, you have to give me something to work with. And then, you know, so I think actually doing it like you were saying and putting a mic in a room and playing, you're going to get a much more real representation of this is what you sound like. It's, you know, and I think that's a great place to start, really.
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure.
So let's talk about some of these bands that you have been, putting out there recently.
Sure.
As everything unfolds, felt like home. That's
Yeah, it's a
an
great
amazing
song.
track.
Yeah.
You've got Raptors, Rock Bottom. How much of the album did you do, or did you just do Rock Bottom?
So I did the whole record of that Raptors. I've actually under the
Look at Matt's face. I can see it. He's like, oh, damn.
I thought he did.
I can see it.
Yeah. So that whole, I mean, everything that band's ever done under the name Raptors, I've produced, mixed, and mastered. I've done everything from them, laying down the first chord to it being on the record and being released. I've had the pleasure of doing with Raptors. As everything unfolds, it's difficult because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say yet about what we've been working on. But for example, with Felt Like Home, it was a bit more complex, the roles in that, but because of their first album, I produced and mixed it. And with the newer songs that you've heard, we wanted to try something different and bring different people in. So what we did was that the band did a lot more writing, and they worked on, with this Everything Unfolds, they have a heavy element of like electronics, and they have a dedicated kind of synth player, electronic guy, and he's really good at producing that kind of music in his own right. So we all kind of had a discussion that we said, why don't we kind of delegate our roles and actually make all of us, our skills come to the table as a whole, rather than just putting all on one person or this. So what we did was John, who does the Simpson electronics, focused on doing that. Adam, who was the kind of main songwriter, focused on that. So they were coming to me with like much more completed ideas. And then because we'd already made a record together, there was that faith in also of just giving me what they had and going, we're really happy with this, but we know that you're going to hear things that we haven't heard. So we kind of then worked together as the three of us on the songs as kind of like a co-producing thing in the studio. But I think with the vocals, with working with Charlie, the singer, that was very much left to me to kind of, because I think that's like something they know that I really like maybe have a lot more kind of experience with, to get the best out of people, because the psychological aspect, or the kind of working with people. So that was kind of more left to me, I guess. And then once we finished that, it was all sent to the States, and a guy called Taylor Larson mixed it. So yeah, that's what you're hearing. That record was a lot more of a kind of a collaborative thing than say the Raptors record, which we did. We did everything back to back. The one funny thing about that Raptors album, though, I'll tell you a funny story about that. On the last day of the last session, of making that record, we turned up like we had done for weeks before and just previous sessions, and they met me outside my studio. I turn everything on. We go around the corner to the coffee shop. We grab coffee. We come in and we get started. So I go in. It was the same drill every day. We have like a routine down. I go in, just turn everything on, make sure everything's running. So they're waiting outside for me, and I never come back. So eventually they kind of come and stick their head in and go, Oz, what's going on? And my computer had just completely died. Completely died.
No way.
Yeah. So we so I said, right, let's just go and get coffee, and like I need some caffeine. We'll figure this out. So we realised that after caffeine that this isn't going to happen. So by 1 o'clock, so this was about 10 a.m. By 1 p.m. we were in another studio with hard drives and carrying on work, because we had to literally just grab things, grab hard drives. I had to, ring a friend who had a studio, a few miles away, and beg that we could kind of take it over for a day. And we finished the record off. We finished the record off in another studio, completely unplanned.
That is awesome.
It's nice to have those contacts in it. If something does go wrong, you can, please, can I come?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope I never have to do it again.
No. But while we're on the subject of Raptors, why don't we let the watchers see and hear what was produced? We're gonna play Rock Bottom.
Awesome.
Here we go. This is Raptors, and you're watching The Sound. Well,
what a fucking band.
So much to unpack there. I thought Matt was going to flip his table over backstage there while I was watching. I could see him. He was ready to kick it into full show mode, just at the show, banging his head.
Well, what's not to love about Raptors? You've got Matt on the drums, who's an absolute animal.
Yeah.
Simon's one of the best vocalists I've heard in a long, long time.
Where do you hear his
Harley's
influences?
just a riff machine.
Yeah.
They've just got a perfect fit, and they've got their own unique sound. You know, I've done a review, I think it was of Rock Bottom, actually. And I said, like, in years to come, people are going to say their influence is Raptors.
Yeah.
You know, and they're insane live. There's a reason why I drove 5 hours to Manchester to see them. But Jared asked me before the show, he was like, is Raptors your favorite band? They're up there, definitely. And he was like, or is it your favorite that Oz has produced? And I was like, come on. He's done Raptors and he's done The City Is Ours. That's why I'm repping tonight. Like, how do I pick?
You want to know the easiest way to tell someone who truly loves music, to me, in my opinion, is ask them what their favorite band is. And if they answer you with the first one, chances are they're not a music junkie. Now they maybe they might still be, but it's rare. But if they go and they take 25 minutes and they start, well, what genre, what time frame, what do you mean specifically? Like favorite?
Yeah, exactly.
Then I know, I'm like, okay, you have the sickness as well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I'm sick with music. You should know that by now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, talking of City. So you produced Alive.
I did.
Which is an absolute insane track, and Ollie absolutely smashed that video.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. I remember early on, Mikey kind of slipping me a sneak peek of what they were working on, because I had no idea. I mean, we finished the song. It was a really quick turnaround on that song. That was obviously as a one-off. They just came in. We did it quick. It was the first time I'd worked with the new drummer, David. Obviously incredibly talented. But we just kind of wanted to get something under our belts, you know, to have some new music out, and obviously just to kind of get the ball rolling with us working together with with David and the new lineup, you know, because I'd not worked with David previously. So it felt like a good thing to do. So we did the song. It was like a really cool song, really different to what we had done before in lots of ways in terms of their influences and what our goal was with the the end product. And it kind of, we were all happy with the production, and it went off, and that was me done. And then, a couple of weeks later, I got a WhatsApp from Mikey, you know, probably about this kind of time. And it was said, hey, Oz, check this out. And it was the first 30 seconds of the video of just like bits of the green screen, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away. I just knew it was going to be great. But yeah, Ollie's so talented and so easy to work with as well.
What better can you ask for than your hard vocalist being one of the best video production people in the UK? You know, well, if not in the world, to be honest. That man's a wizard.
Yeah, I mean, and what's funny is that like that's kind of how he got in the band. You know, because he was doing their videos and taking photos, and they just always had a real click going on and a good vibe between the band and Ollie. You know, when Sam was still in the band, you know, Ollie would do their videos, he would like take pictures of them live, and they all used to hang out like a band. It was like they had that kind of like vibe going on. And when Sam made like obviously a very difficult decision to kind of step down and walk away from The City Is Ours, Ollie was just this guy that kind of was almost felt like a kind of honorary member anyway, because he'd been around for so much. He fitted in, everyone loved him. And I can't remember how, but like I think they had heard him scream, and they were like, well, I know how it came about, how he, because I've been talking to Mikey and Ollie about it, and apparently when he was out on tour with Our Hollow Our Home, and obviously he's been out with all these bands with like hard vocals and stuff like that. Yeah. During one sound check, Our Hollow Our Home threw him the mic, and Ollie just let out this insane, like, what the hell? Like, and being on tour with all these bands with all the hard vocals and singing along while he's taking his pictures actually trained his voice to do hard vocals. That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how much people. I mean, I guess the boys must have said this in interviews. I don't actually know, but like with Coma, the record they had done previously, that was the first time I think Ollie had ever really properly recorded and had done anything with the City as Ours, certainly. And he literally walked in to the studio with me, and we were like, "We're making a record on a record label. There's no
Right.
safety net here. It's
While we're
happening."
talking about Coma, everyone needs to go and check it out.
There it is.
Go
What
and
an
check
album.
out that album. It's a brilliant album.
So yeah, so Ollie literally stepped in front, literally walked into the studio in front of a mic, and we were like, off we go, and did his vocals in ridiculously quick timing. I was completely shocked that, you know, a guy with quote unquote very little experience, you know,
Yeah.
I say quote unquote because he's been around for years and years around
Oh yeah,
this
he's been around the
music.
scene a long time, but not actually in that role, you know.
Exactly, yeah. So you know, but yeah, to see how professional and how like smooth he didn't seem nervous, he seemed confident, he seemed really rehearsed, just relaxed, and it was an absolute breeze to record the vocals on that, and I was blown away with what he did. Absolutely blown away.
I love it. So also Dream State,
Yes.
you've done some of their production.
I have, yeah.
I've
So
actually secured tickets to the first two shows in February with our social media director Lisa Wills is coming back to the UK for some shows.
amazing.
So that should be awesome. Because that's for their EP release. Have you worked on the whole EP?
Yes. Is the short
He's like,
answer.
yes, but I can't tell you what.
Again, because like I don't know what people, you know, I have to be careful with, you know, because people like to
Oh, of
release
course.
information, but I can tell you that I produced, mixed, and mastered every song on that EP. So I've done everything with that, which was a real joy, and it's funny, you know, because I very much with kind of my career and stuff like that, I've not been the most kind of pushy salesman guy. I tend to kind of just let my work do the talking, and hopefully, like, you know, hopefully that does it, and just choose to spend my time working really fucking hard rather than messaging people too much or, you know, schmoozing too much, I guess. So whether I should, you know, whether that's right or not, who knows, but that's kind of how I've been. But there's a couple of times over the years, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 times where I've heard a band and gone, I should be working with that band. I can just hear it in my head that I should be working with that band. And about, I don't know how long ago it was, a lot of years ago, I messaged their manager and said, I need to work with Dream State, when I heard them with their old lineup, because I was like, this is just going to work, you know. And then through this kind of bizarre sequence of events with the lineup change, and then I had, you know, I'd worked with Jess, their new vocalist Jessie. I'd worked with her with different projects, and we played live together, we toured together, and you know, I just knew how great she was, and she just messaged me and said, I think I'm working with Dream State, and I was like, amazing. So she kind of said to me, would you be interested in kind of having a conversation with the band about maybe getting involved in this? And I said, yeah, sure. And then it happened. We did Taunt Me was the first song we did together. We'd never worked together before. I'd never met them. And we walked in and we did Taunt Me, their first single.
Wow.
And and it just clicked. But really very proud to work with that band, because, as I said, a long time ago when they first started releasing music, I heard something in it that I could really see that I could bring something to the table, you know?
Love it.
Yeah.
So we're working, because you work with Neck Deep as well, didn't you? And they are soaring over here right now.
Yeah. I mixed a song for them a few years ago. They did a cover of a Green Day song, and they asked me to mix it, and that was amazing. So yeah, that was a really cool project to work on, and it's been great, you know, like over the years. Just as I said, you know, I tend to kind of sit in my studio and just keep my head down and be as busy as I can, as long as I'm working on, you know, songs that I like and songs that I see has some kind of value to me or to a listener. If the band are, you know, a multi, you know, million selling, you know, platinum gold band, or a band that are just working on their first release, you know, if the music's good and they're professional and passionate about it, then to me there's no difference really. you know.
That's just answered the question I was going to ask you. I was like, well, how does it make you feel seeing, you know, like you say, Raptors, you started with Raptors from everything they've done as Raptors,
yeah,
you know, and they're just, they're escalating, you know. How does that make you feel when you work with these bands from, you know?
It's literally the best feeling. I like it. It honestly is probably the biggest payoff, actually, because the thing is, like, you know, as a producer, like, what I've realized that I can, you know, hopefully what I think I can bring to the table is, you know, I always say to bands, and it sounds like a bit of a spiel, but it's honestly what I believe is that there are going to be people out there that will get, you know, the best guitar tone or the best snare drum sound. Like, I'm not really that guy. I like the sound of things, but like, I'm not the guy that my primary focus is to get you the most perfect djent guitar tone. What I want to do is take your song and put a big bow around it so that when someone listens to it for the first time, it makes them feel something. So
Right.
if it's like that song, like Rock Bottom, I want you to, you know, I want people to bang in their heads and it to feel exciting and about, you know, like a song like that. I want it to feel like to the listener that the wheels are about to fall off of it at any point.
Yeah.
You know,
And I said at the start of the show, for all the American listeners, they know who Chris Dawson is. I don't know if you know who Chris Dawson is.
Yeah, I know his name. Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's one of the best producers over there in America, and I said you're like the equivalent over here, which you are because you're insane.
That's very kind. Thank you.
What I would love to see, and I would love to make it happen, is an Craggs Chris Dawson collab.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. And I know we're running short on time, but I've got one more question for you. Now, we're talking about, you know, bands sending you stuff, and, you know, it's some of it's great, some of it's not so great.
Yep.
A lot of ours is, you know, we work with a lot of up and coming bands that a lot of them do self-produce and stuff like that. What's the biggest advice you can give an up and coming band?
Oh, that's a great question. If they're self-producing, do you mean like what if they're going to self-produce their stuff? What would be the one piece of advice I'd give them for self-producing it, or just in general?
Just in general, what would you know? Where do you see bands going wrong? You know, how would you?
I think people, in terms of, I mean, there's a few things I could talk for hours on this, so I don't want to take up too much of your show with me rambling on. I would say, in terms of production, say they're self-producing, I think like a huge thing but I mean, I guess it's just something that's like I learned with doing this for nearly 20 years is that, as I said earlier, for me personally, what seems to move the needle most when I start working with a band and, you know, a band are doing X and then I work with them and then I see the progression. I think the biggest thing that moves the needle isn't focusing on the guitar tone or like listening to Periphery and going, okay, we're going to match their guitar tone. That's the cool thing that everyone's doing. It's actually thinking about the song and about what you want the listener to feel when they hear that song. So if it's a ballad or if it's something that's supposed to feel sad, how do you make the listener feel that? If it's a heavy song, how do you make them feel that? And it's just so overlooked, but it's a hard skill to learn. But that would be my advice for production. And yeah, and I think in general as bands, you know, just general advice for bands. I think I say to a lot of clients that I work with, the secret to success is very simple. It's literally three things you've got to do as a band, which is write, record and release music, do social media, and play live. It's as simple as that. It's three things. That's all you have to do. You just have to do it consistently.
You have just nailed it on the head. I know that Lisa's watching and she's going to love the fact that you said social media, because one thing we're always on about is, you know, be consistent. Like, she tries to tag bands when, you know, we do like the Dirty 30 and stuff like that. Some of them don't have Twitter. Some of them don't have Instagram. It's like, be on all those platforms and be consistent, because
you can't
social media these days is just as important as your music.
Correct. It is. And simultaneously, I think playing live is as important as your music. And I think the three things.
Oh, definitely, 100%. Well, that's what, you know,
they have to have all those three things.
That's actually how I discovered Raptors. Was seeing them live at Turbulence Festival.
Amazing.
And I was just like, what? Who are these?
Yep.
and then what you probably did after that was then go and checked out their social media. You know, and that's how it works.
I was stood there with our social media director, Lisa Wills, We were stood there because she'd come over for it, and we just looked at each other and we were like, "What?" And instantly, Spotify, Facebook, you know, Twitter, like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And been a
Well,
huge
that's
fan ever
it.
since. You know,
And I say to every band that no matter what level or where they are, if you can get those three things and consistently, progressively do that, so you're always got a bit of attention on those three areas. No matter what level you're at, you will see a growth in your band, guaranteed.
Jared, you know this sign.
Yeah, I got it. I already wrote it down.
Good man.
Yeah. Dude, we touched on a lot tonight, and you nailed it to wrap things up. You nailed it with it's the song. Josie Scott from Saliva, we got a clip from him saying the same exact thing, and you even added another layer. Whatever that song is supposed to make you feel, whether it's happy, mad, sad, angry, or all of those in the same song, then that's what it's supposed to do. I do love the guitar tone right out of the gate on that Raptors song that we played.
Thank you.
Before the drums kick in, that it was a little skanky, and that's a good thing. And I like that. It sounded really, really good. So I know you can dial it in. I know you can.
Yeah.
But another thing, go ahead.
I was just going to say that guitar sound. When we were playing it, then I remembered how we did that, which was that is the vocal mic was left in the corner of the room still from the night before when we were tracking vocals, and that's what you were listening to on the intro.
Well,
so I thought it sounded cool.
It did.
Oh, wow.
It sounded really cool, and that's the first thing that caught my ear most for me out of the whole song. But that really was stood out. You touched on a lot of things tonight, and I'm glad you did. We got Oceans in patiently waiting, guys. We thank y'all patiently waiting backstage. Before we wrap things up, I just want to say you touched on a lot of things about today with technology, the way it's evolved, the way things have become more accessible to people like you guys that are doing recordings in your house. But you mentioned one thing earlier that we haven't touched on that I loved is the psychology of everything. And that is huge for a producer to understand and to know, because recording music is a very emotional or artistic, whatever adjective you want to use. It's not just like you're going into an office for some reason, right? It's there's a vibe in the room, and the fact that you understand that, I think is great. You mentioned doing it with vocalists, with the gentleman from Raptors. What's your approach to that? If you could tell us just real quick, how do you approach the psychology part of it?
Okay, I'll be as quick as I can. As I said, I tend to ramble, but with vocals, I personally come at it from the stance of a cheerleader. So I'm not there to tell them that they've done anything wrong ever. I'm just there to tell them when they do something good, So my stance is more, it's great, let's do it again. This part. So if they do a line or a section and 3/4 of it is trash and they're not warmed up and it's not good, I won't say it's not there. I'll say that one line, unbelievable. Give me some more. And that's how I come at it. I try and come at it with a lot of energy as well. And I don't tend to kind of work with vocalists. I tend to work at quite a fast pace. So it's quite a high energy. It tends to be kind of quite like, I guess, unless I'm feeling that I'm being too high energy, and then I try and pull it back for them. But it tends to be just, as I said, a bit of a kind of like, that's amazing, cool, keep going. And then eventually it's like, oh, we're done, and that's it. And the song's done, but I find that I tailor that process or that psychology very differently for every instrument. But with vocals, I think it's the most important. And I also don't let anybody, while the vocalist is in the other room tracking, I don't let anybody speak to them, through the mic, through the cans, to walk into the room. Everything that they want to say has to come through me. Yeah. So I say to the band, you're just going to have to talk to me. If you want to tell him that he's sung the lyric wrong, that's totally fine. But you tell me, and I will, at the appropriate time, figure that out. Because it's about getting the flow and a flow state going with the singer, rather than just go, no, that was wrong, and just breaking people's confidence or their flow.
It's like a dance. You get it. So that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, look, where do we need to send people? Your Hidden Track Studios, is that?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, on my social media, on Facebook, it's Hidden Track Studios. I post pretty much all of the stuff that I've worked on continuously on that page. It's just a long list of new releases. So if people want to hear my work, that's a great place. I have a website. It's about 8 years old, but you can have a look if you're interested in getting in touch with me. That's www.hiddentrackstudios.co.uk. And if you're on Instagram, there's a studios page, but probably the best is my personal one on Instagram, which is just Craggs. and that's got a lot of all my recent work on there, my contact details, and everyone can just kind of jump on and get hold of me any way they want.
Well, every time you got a new band, a new project, a new anything that you put out, shoot it over to us. I know Matt's eager to hear it, and we're huge fans of what you're doing, and we will get it on our station like that. So
that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for all your support, and it's really humbling and incredible to speak to people over the other side of the world, you know, and I'm really thankful, and thank you for letting me come on and chat to you guys. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for staying up late, dude. It's we'll let you go to bed now. And we'll sort out Oz Craggs UK Lowdown special.
There you go. There you
Excellent.
go.
So, well, thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your show.
Same to you.
All right, thanks, dude.
See you soon.